Hey, good to see you.
Yeah. Hey,
It's
how are
been a
you?
long
It has
time.
been a long time since we actually spoke within like a relatively close distance to an episode being released.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we
A
got
lot
way
has
ahead.
happened.
A lot has happened. Well, we got way ahead, which was good. And by design, we
Yes.
planned,
Yeah.
we prepared. This was all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and we
And then
informed our guests as well. So they were not caught off guard either.
right, just waiting for their episode to finally
Yeah.
come out,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We
exactly.
we had some time.
Exactly.
Uh but here we are now. You have returned from paternity leave.
I have returned from paternity leave.
So congratulations.
Paternity leave.
You've
That's
returned from leaving,
Yeah, that's
but not
the mumbling is left over from having the second child.
yeah.
That's what
Well,
happens. You lose the ability
congratulations.
to
It's
speak.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been like it's so funny. I just like I would say that I've said it 25 times to Renee. I'll just look at her and I'll be like, I can't believe we have two children.
Right.
Like it's just nuts. Um, because it's just like I don't know, maybe people because it's a big like it's a stereotype, right? Like the big Catholic family. So maybe those who are like on kid 5 or 6, it's like it's not that it loses its novelty because it's a new like human being that's come into the world that you are uh tasked with raising well and leading to heaven to a certain extent. Um but for us on number two, it's still like, whoa, life fully changed, like 100% nothing is the same.
Yeah.
Uh, and maybe that ceases to be the case on kids 7, 8, 9, 10, or if you're Connor Gallagher, 15 or 16. But for us, number two, biggie.
Speaking as somebody who's only observed from the outside,
Yeah, yeah,
my sense is that it doesn't change. Like each kid is a
yeah,
unique being and is a unique experience.
yeah.
What changes is the ability that you have as a parent to call upon your children to help.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
The bigger the
mm-hmm.
kids get, the more they can be responsible for certain
Right,
things. The
right,
more you
right,
can
right.
kind of set the older kids to a certain task or something.
Yeah.
My favorite though is friends of mine who told me that when after their third child, they realized they were outnumbered,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what helped them actually settle in.
Right,
And so they stopped
right.
worrying as much as they had before when their third child came along,
Yeah,
because now it wasn't just like one parent could take one kid and the other parent could take the other.
right.
There was always a third kid or in the mix somewhere that needed to be taken care of. And
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm,
when they realized that they were outnumbered, they started to calm down a lot, they said. And
mm-hmm,
just like that's
mm-hmm.
what took them the next step.
I had a chance to talk to someone. I mean, like 5, 6 months ago. I knew him sort of. Really, I used to work with his wife, and so we had like known of each other for a while, and we actually just got to meet basically by happenstance. And he has either 4 or 5 kids,
Hmm.
and I had said to him like, yeah, we're expecting our second, in May. Born on the same day as my older son, by the way, share a birthday. Um, and I said, what's it like? What's four like? And he basically said like, well, you learn to start trusting in your guardian angel. Like where it's like, you can't do it. Like you have to surrender and just like trust in the Lord and like know He's gonna take care of it, and he's in control. He also had just become I don't know what it's called when you enter into Opus Dei as a layperson. I don't know what the
Numerary, I
a
think.
numerary, right?
Yeah.
And he also said that just another thing from that conversation, tangentially, that I thought was awesome. He was like, my dad's the God of the universe, and that's made my prayer a lot better. Like, so I'm just throwing that little tidbit out there as well. That like, things to think about if you're a parent of more than two, and also if your dad is the God of the universe, which of course, if you are baptized, tis the case. So
The other thing, keep this in mind. Every parent who's got more than two kids who you're looking at going, wow, they've got so many. We've just got the two. They're doing
Mhm.
really well, and you're comparing yourself. At one time, they were exactly where you are.
Yeah,
Two kids,
yeah,
even just
yeah.
just having like every family started somewhere.
Right. They were recording an episode of a podcast from their parents' basement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't live
Yeah,
with
yeah.
them though. I don't live with my parents. This isn't.
Yeah, that's
I'm not
yeah,
even
you know.
really in a basement technically. It's.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, wait. You mean you? I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I
I'll
got us
refrain
mixed up
from
again.
answering that question. But yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I know. And the thing is like I think an additional piece of the pressure is you said it before, right? Like every kid's a new human being, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's a new adventure every time. And so I had not thought through it, but I had in I foolishly subconsciously believed that it would be this like basically the exact same process
Mm.
of kid 1 to kid 2. And my second son has definitely, I don't want to say, when I use the word health scare, I'm using it lightly because at no point was I absolutely terrified, you know. But like we had to, they're like my aunt is a family practitioner, so we would call her with a problem, and she'd be like, "Yeah, you should take him to the ER," you know. And so like we had to do that with like a 2.5, 3 week old, you know, and get him checked, and then go see a specialist, and thank God everything is okay, you know. But like we did not do that with my first son, you know, not even close. And so I just didn't sufficiently prepare myself for anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then just and we like we were talking off the air, but we recently moved, right? So then doing that on top of that, it feels like we have just been obliterated for like 4 weeks straight. And by we I mean that's how I feel. I can't speak for Renee. But
She's doing much better
obliterated
than you,
on and
but
off,
it's
you
fine.
know. Yeah, well, she's like a superhero, you know.
And
So
she's better adjusted and
yeah,
overall
yeah,
just
yeah.
a healthier person. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would say that the integration level higher.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so like it has been, and on top of that, I had a midterm last week, and so like it was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like life is currently
You hear that,
insane.
kids? You hear that, kids? Even parents have to take tests.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But so it's been wonderful, to like finally meet my second son. I got an A- on my midterm, and the move has
Hey,
occurred. So
look at that.
that's what's up. That's
I,
what's up.
it's great. I mean, it's a beautiful time for you guys as a family to just be growing together and taking
Yeah.
taking these steps. But for sure, also, uh, I think a genuinely challenging time. But
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
exciting too. It just I think watching a family grow is always beautiful, and seeing how that family's making adjustments to different things, whether it's the addition of a new member of the family,
Mm-hmm.
physically making a move to a new home, to a new place. There's a lot of things that are happening that it's really all part of the unfolding, right? The unfolding of God's plan in your life, the unfolding of how you and Renee are becoming more and more
Mm-hmm.
fully who you truly are, and
Mm-hmm.
how you're able to share that and hand it on to your kids. Uh,
And I
what?
think the recognizing the unfolding to be who we truly are is like we're called to be saints,
Yeah.
like it's all of these things combined, but I think especially moving out of a home has really, I don't know, that's been really palpable internally for me. Is that an
Mm.
oxymoron to say something is palpable internally? It doesn't matter.
Eh,
Regardless, you know what I mean? Because it palpable is like you can see it and feel it and touch it, right? But but like recognizing like because like one of the things when you move is like you throw a bunch of garbage out, you know what I mean? And included in that garbage is things that you thought you needed but you don't.
yeah. Right on.
And so like a piece of it is also like realizing like, oh my gosh, how the heck did we get so much stuff? Like where did this come from? Why do I own 14 GFIs? Like, like what on earth is going on, Matthew?
It's
And
one of those you
so
thought you might need them, so you got them.
right, and so like realizing like it's almost like you're being whittled down, you
Yeah.
know? And then on top of that, like moving from one place to another, um, I don't know, it's almost like you feel, I mean, I felt like a certain amount of uh ripping, you're being ripped from your comfort zone.
Hmm.
And and also there's like a certain element of uh uncertainty, moving forward. And so like in many ways I feel like I'm putting forth a blank slate now. As I sit in front of a two bookshelves full of books that I own, you know. Um but so it's definitely been interesting to the reason I'm using the word interesting, a certain amount of vagary, I guess. But here's something that I've been thinking about in terms of the discussion about homes. Um, I can't quote it for you exactly, but I know Saint Therese has a very famous quote about how, right, this is not our home, and um, we are this isn't our home. This is the boat,
Yeah,
right?
the
Like
world
our
is your
earth.
ship, not your home.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, right.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that has
yeah.
been really palpable,
Hmm.
as Renee and I have experienced huge changes in the last month, but like big decisions in the next half of a year, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and how like, well, all of those things, it's almost like those things are, I don't know if they're pieces of the boat to try and like stretch the analogy, but like they're like items on the boat, all those decisions. Did you just kill a bug? It's okay.
Just drop something. I didn't mean to. Knocked it off a shelf over here.
Yeah, it's all good. But like
Ah.
that's it. Father Sam's out here swatting flies. But they are like they're items on the boat. They are pieces of the boat, but they're not necessary, like they're not the necessary thing that needs to be accomplished, which is reaching the other place, the other land. And in this
Hmm.
case, the analogy that Saint Therese is putting forth is that land of heaven, and so like, what do I need to throw off the boat? Like what am I too attached to
Hmm.
that like if I don't throw this off the boat's gonna sink, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, and so they're like, I think that's been like incredibly uncomfortable for me to realize that like, well, maybe one of the things that I need to throw off the boat is something that I don't really want to throw off the boat. Like I was like kind of hoping to bring this with me, like,
Yeah.
you know?
It's an interesting thought, right? Because there's at one and the same time we have like a theology of home
Mm-hmm.
and a sense that the home is something that really matters. And so
Mm-hmm.
having a
Mm-hmm.
place, having that location, the physical spot where you kind of put down roots, even having some of the creature comforts that make a
Mm-hmm.
place feel like home,
Mm-hmm.
it is important. We don't deny that, and at the same time, we recognize that the world is our ship, not our home. That we're passing through this, and so we kind of have to hold in tension that reality of there's the future home that I long for, which is heaven,
Mm-hmm.
the eternal home. That's the only home that ultimately has any meaning.
Yeah.
And yet, even here and now, amidst these passing things, I still have a need of a place. I
Mm-hmm.
still need to be able to put my feet somewhere. Of
Right.
course, like there's the famous gospel passage that the foxes have dens and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of
Mm-hmm.
Man has nowhere to rest his head. So come follow me.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, Jesus is speaking obviously to emphasize the point that it's following him that's the most important thing. But even there, we find he has Bethany.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
shows up to the home of Lazarus and Mary and Martha, and he stays with them. He goes to a place where
Yeah.
he can rest. He
Right.
grew
He's
up in a
welcomed.
home in Nazareth.
Yeah.
The idea of his childhood and his growing up, this is the place where his roots are.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we can say both things without being contradictory,
Yeah.
without finding conflict. But there's this really necessary piece of like, you're right, having that detachment from stuff and from place, so that we can focus on the things that are most important, while at the same time we can't do without those things. At the same
Yeah.
time, like we need to have that place where we have our roots.
Mm-hmm. And also like seeing, so like this is something I've been feeling internally where I'm I'm being like drawn out of my home, and I've been longing for home, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But like my watching my 2-year-old son react, because like so we're staying with my parents for a little bit in between places, um, and like watching my son get so upset about not getting to like take his afternoon nap at home, and instead having to go to Nona's house, you know, because we're Italian, so we got Nona, you know. Um, uh, she fulfills the stereotype. Don't worry. But
I've no
like,
question about that.
yeah. Her chicken cutlets are incredible. But like watching him almost like, I don't know, like fail to process basically, you know, like he doesn't really get it, but like he's feeling the feelings. I was like, man, like we really do have that desire for it, like you said, you know, like home really is that good thing. And I think that's really what sparked in me that, like, you know, home's not on this side of earth, you know, it's not on this side of heaven rather. Um it isn't this earth, you know, like that's not what we're. And I was talking to Renee about it and how um C.S. Lewis has this argument that what is it? Food is it? It's hunger makes no sense in a world without food, you
Yeah.
know, and like atheism makes no sense in a world where we desire God, right? Like it's almost like the longing proves the existence of the thing for which we long,
Yeah.
and so like the longing for home, in a sense, proves the need of it.
Hmm.
Um, but the fact that it's like intrinsically temporary here, you know, and like that's not what I'm longing for. I'm not longing for somewhere I could stay for a long time and then eventually have to leave, you know.
And I think that also gives you a sense of the mission of your home,
Yeah.
of the earthly home that you do build. What
Mm-hmm.
is its mission? The home on earth is meant to be like a reflection of and a preparation for heaven.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is the place where we enter into that. This is the place where we get ready for it.
Yeah.
I think there's a reason why people sometimes, at least it seems to me as a priest, it seems that sometimes people struggle to die in a hospital.
Mm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
a lack of peace. There's a discomfort, and like the place they really want to go is they want to go home,
Yeah.
because home is the closest thing to heaven that they have on earth.
Right. Wow. Yeah. That's
To die
profound.
I think to die at home is
Yeah.
like the entryway for them into heaven. It's the familiarity that's so helpful that gives them
Mm-hmm.
peace. So
Mm-hmm.
if your son is upset about not being able to take his nap at home because you guys have moved and he's got to take his nap at grandma's house,
Nona.
sorry,
Nona's house. Thank
Nona,
you.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
thank you.
Nona's house.
Don't
I
you
was
dare
just
say
I was
don't
just
you dare say
translating 'cause-
ricotta on this podcast, okay? It's ricotta, okay? Ricotta.
he's recognizing that, like, it's just think about like if you have to travel, right?
Yeah.
Do you sleep as well when you're
No.
traveling as you do
Well,
in your own bed?
it
Most of the
depends
time,
on if I'm traveling for work and if there's an infant near my
true.
bed.
Yeah. Okay.
But-
So you might have it a little bit different than I do because I don't have to worry about waking up in the middle of the night to feed a
generally
child.
speaking, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like
generally
if
speaking,
I'm
no.
traveling, usually my sleep on the road is a little bit disturbed. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that it's bad sleep. It's just like I might wake up a couple extra times, or
Yeah.
I might wake up and have the sense of not being in the right place and wondering
Mm-hmm.
where the heck I am or what I'm supposed to be doing. All that happens. And why does it happen? Well, because we're outside of a familiar place. So just think about what the home is really meant to be. That's where we grow in love. That's where we are fed. That's where we rest. That's where we get ready to go out and do the next thing that needs to be taken care of. And so if home is sort of taken away from us, then we kind of feel like we're without bearings sometimes. To be able to have certain things that remind us of, and this can be even just having things. It's not necessarily even the physical place. Like you carry with you certain items, and you'll see this with
Yeah.
like all the nomadic tribes. They carry their things with them.
Yeah.
They don't just they don't just go and like sleep over here and then they
Right,
travel several
right.
miles and sleep there. Like, no, they carry with them
Right.
their tents. They travel with their animals and with their families.
Right. Even
So-
those nomadic tribes have a sense of home.
Right, because the people are there, and
Yeah.
there's also a sense of rhythm of here's how we get to these different places. Whereas when you have a more permanent home, the feeling of being there, this is the place to really be restored, and this is the place to really connect. When you leave home, at first there's a feeling of disconnect, and it takes a little while to adjust. Like if you have to be
Mm-hmm.
away for a period of time, if you go to, like, somebody goes off to school and they're gonna live at the school that they're studying at, it's gonna take them a little while to adjust to that
Right.
new place.
Right. And
And
every
after a
time you
while,
go back, right, even if you've made intermittent trips, every time you go back, it's a little easier.
right, and every time you go back, like after the fact, I always look at this like when I go back to the seminary.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I've gone back to visit, I'm gone 17 years now. Every time I go back, it's like I know where everything is.
Yeah.
I feel super comfortable wandering around. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
bother me at all because that place became another home for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, but to have that sense of home being simultaneously temporary, and yet it needs to be that reflection of heaven somehow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I wanna. You use the phrase like you get your bearings, or
Yeah.
did you say you lose your bearings? Either way, it
Well,
connects.
when you leave home, you can lose your
Lose
bearings
your
pretty
bearings.
easily. Yeah.
Right. So because of like major life shifts, the thing that was immediately impacted was my prayer life. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like you can't. I don't know. You like it has to be that way, you know? And it's a like I anticipated that. You know what I mean? I knew that was coming. But it really came to a head this past weekend as we were moving out of our old place because I mean like I was telling you how the two primary movers, and by movers I just mean guys who were picking things up and putting them back down, you know,
Yep.
were myself and my brother-in-law Andrew, friend of the show, Andrew McIntyre. Um, and so like, and I was actually expecting to, and I say this without any hard feelings, really, I do. I was expecting it to have potentially like three other people to help us move things,
Yeah.
you know, particularly the bigger things, and it just fell through for various reasons, you know.
Right.
And so I literally had to move more than I thought I did. You know, like I knew I had X amount of stuff. I just didn't know I'd be the guy moving all of it, and hence the need to throw some of it out. Because of that, I really struggled to find time to pray, and I have felt like a guy without a compass. You know, it has felt like I'm lost in the woods and there is no compass. You know, and I think one of the reasons that the Lord allowed me to experience it was because I also think he's been refining my prayer a little bit, you know, and so like showing me like just how dependent I am on his grace, you know, in and through prayer has been like a revelation, you know, where it's like you can't do it, dude. Like you can't, like you don't even you didn't even realize how much you needed this.
Yeah.
And in many ways, there is I wouldn't go as far to say that I have been experiencing desolation in a permanent sense as a result of it. I mean, like there are temperaments, and you as well as anyone who's ever listened to this podcast for more than 5 to 10 minutes knows I can be a little melodramatic. And so like there have been down moments, you know, as a
Sure,
result
sure.
of the lack of like consolation that generally speaking can come through prayer. Actually does come through prayer unless you're in a particular stage, whatever, you know what I mean? And so like just feeling it's the feeling that I have as far as the need for home, you know, and the desire for home, and recognizing that like heaven is my home. One of the ways that gets quelled almost, or like I don't know, like it feels like you're putting a bomb on it, you know what I mean, is by
Yeah.
praying, because it's like
Balm,
you can
like BALM, not
correct, yeah,
BOMB.
not bomb as in boom.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
yes,
just
yes,
so we're
exactly.
clear what kind
Right.
of balm
Balm.
we're putting on.
Right. If you're interested in balms, you could go listen to our episode with Catholic Beard Balm at the very beginning of this series.
Oh man,
I know, throwback. 2 in
That's
1.
a-
Come on now.
wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like how like in a way like I can actually spend time at home now by entering
Yeah.
into prayer, you know, and this is something that I really was excited to talk to you about actually, because as we've mentioned many times on the show, you're imminent. And, but
You
like
know,
you're grounded, and you're integrated, and I think you could shed some good light on that.
I was taught this when I was in the seminary, actually, as just a general rule of thumb, uh, to go and see my spiritual director before, uh, really even before, like at the very beginning of a semester or right before the semester began,
Hmm.
and go over the schedule.
Mm.
This semester, I have classes at these times on these days. And so that means this day is my heaviest day, or this day is my hardest day, or this is the day that I'm probably going to enjoy the least while I'm at
Right,
school.
right, right, right.
Uh, or this is the day when I'm going to have extra time on my hands. What do I do with that extra time? Or
Hmm.
whatever it is. I learned that every time I know there's a change coming, it's
Hmm.
good to sit down and evaluate and take stock and say, how am I doing right now?
Hmm.
What do I want to continue? What do I want to stop? What do I want to change? And to use the like those flex points of here's a change of
Hmm.
semester, here's a change of year,
Right.
here's just you've gotten to a different point in your life. Here's how to use that to your spiritual advantage.
Right.
I've often done
I
this
like
with.
that too. Spiritual advantage. It's not just like, I mean, maybe sometimes it's like just getting by, but that like this can be leveraged.
Well, that's exactly it. I've often done this with students, like when they're going off to college or getting ready for something that they want to know how they can have a really fruitful year. Like they came home and they were home from college. They had a job, but they were at their parents' house. They were working. They had a routine. They were able, because they have freedom, because they're adults now, they're able to like stop into the chapel and pray every day. So
Right.
they've got this figured out. Now they're going back to school where they're going to have a busy schedule, where they're going to have classes, where they're going to be maybe in an environment that's less conducive to virtue, depending on what school they go to, etc.
Hmm.
So they
Hmm.
want to figure out what can they do. I remember mapping out with one of our, she's now actually, she's a therapist. She's doing great, Michelle.
Hmm.
Michelle's a cantor here at my parish. When she was in college, we sat down and she brought a map of the campus, and
Nice.
she marked where the campus church was and where there was another chapel that had the Blessed Sacrament reserved.
Hmm.
And she marked what route she would normally walk. And we
Hmm.
just kind of plotted out when she could make visits to the Blessed Sacrament, when she could stop and pray, when she would have time that could be
Yeah.
dedicated to prayer, and when she just wouldn't have that. And so we said, don't try to pray during this time because you're too busy. You literally have to go
Yeah.
running to class or do something.
Right.
So don't ever feel guilty when you pass the chapel on on the way to this class.
Right.
But if you're passing the chapel and not going in after this class, you might need to pause and ask yourself what's holding you back from making even a short visit to pray.
Hmm.
And it was this great opportunity to say, we know what's coming. We know what the schedule is
Hmm.
going to look like. So let's ramp up the effort to pray. And I think anytime we're in a moment of transition, and obviously this doesn't only apply to college students or to
Yeah. Sure.
an
Sure.
academic
Right.
setting.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
could be anything. If you know that you're about to change jobs, start
Hmm.
thinking about what you want your prayer life to look like. If you know
Hmm.
that you're going uh, to have a physical move coming, well, how will you pray? Like make a plan for how you can pray in the midst of a move.
Yeah.
So like the location of the prayer is going to look different. So you were finding it like it was really good to pray at home,
Yeah.
right? And then you were realizing I can find that space. I can find God here in the house while
Hmm.
I'm moving.
Hmm.
Maybe while I'm
Hmm.
lifting boxes, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. I
But
was
there's
certainly trying.
yeah.
I was trying, man. I don't know how successful I was, but I was trying.
It can also be things like, and this goes to, have we haven't really talked much about Father Peyton, have we?
We've no, we've
We've
touched
referenced him,
Father
right?
Peyton
Yeah,
in a we haven't touched Father Peyton. We've touched upon Father Peyton.
yeah,
There's a huge difference between those two
that's true.
sentences.
No,
Because
but
I think he passed away a long time ago. No.
80, 92, I want to
Yeah.
say.
Okay. So
I think it was
yeah, a long
92.
time ago.
A
Before I
long
was
time, yeah.
born, Father Sam.
Ouch.
A long time
You just shut up. You young person, you. Uh,
ago.
no, Father Peyton's whole thing was the rosary, and the rosary is a family.
Mhm.
And he said, this is the thing. Wherever you are in the world, you can pray the rosary.
Mm-hmm.
whatever might be going on. So like that's an easy and tangible thing that you can kind of point to and say,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the rosary. Maybe I can't get to the Blessed Sacrament and make a holy hour, or maybe I can't go to daily mass, but I can do this. I
Mm-hmm.
know a guy who was offered a corporate job. He was offered a promotion, and it would be a massive, massive promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And his one question was, will I still be able to go to daily mass?
Mm-hmm.
Because he liked his routine where he could go to daily mass. But with this promotion, it was going to mean he'd have to be in the office a little bit earlier
Mm-hmm.
because of the particular office that he was going to be in, the particular role he was going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as it was a huge pay bump and he was overqualified for the job and everything
Right.
else,
Right.
he was like, can I still go to mass? And they said, well, we really need you to be in the office at this time. He said, then I'm not interested.
Right.
And he turned down the job so that he could keep going to daily mass. So
Right.
they
Wow.
changed the parameters of the job so that he could go to daily mass
Right.
and
Yeah.
they could still have him in the role. So
Right.
all that is to say, I think whenever we're in that place of a transition, whenever we're in that moment where things are changing kind of all around us, it's a good opportunity to examine, what do I need spiritually? What's my prayer life looking like right now? What can it be? What do I dream of it being?
Mm-hmm.
And how can I make the preparations right now? So that's the in advance.
Right. I mean, it's basically like this is why when when we were discussing with Father Carter Griffin and I guess to an extent Dr. Greg Bottaro way back when, I'm just making reference to like our first 10 episodes,
You're just
for
calling them all
whatever
out. I love
reason.
it.
Um Human formation is just like it is the foundation.
Yeah.
If you're not formed in those I want to call them like human virtues, that is to say like you're incredibly disorganized. Like it's hard to grow in the spiritual life
Yeah.
and also do anything else, like organization is just so key.
Yeah. And we can make all the plans we want.
Mm-hmm.
Plans are good, but if there's no place of follow up, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
doing anything to actually check in, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
actually trying to figure out, hey, did this work?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm not just executing the plan,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not following it. It's great that I had the plan, but I actually have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If my plan is
execution and perseverance.
yeah, if my plan is pray a rosary every Tuesday morning and I don't pray a rosary every Tuesday morning, then the plan is meaningless.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like a
You've done
nice
nothing.
thought, but I've done
Yeah,
nothing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where we have to learn how to execute the plan, but we also have to learn, as we're doing that, how to examine and how to evaluate. So this is where your experience as a dad comes in handy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And now with a second kid
Yeah.
and recognizing the individuality of each child,
Right.
you're gonna notice how to modify certain things. There might be things that you did with the 2-year-old that you won't do with the newborn.
Yeah. Well, there's
as-
definitely a thing. Yeah, that's
Well,
definitely
I mean,
true. Just
obviously,
for the record.
yeah. No, I mean, like obviously, there's certain things that you
I don't
do
throw
to
my
take care of
newborn
your
in the air and catch him.
Right. They don't need that.
I am a good person.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's good. I'm proud of you for that. No, but like as the personalities develop and as they like, there will be certain things that you'll have to discipline the younger one about more than you have to discipline the older one, and there'll be
Right.
things that you have to encourage the older one to do in a way that you don't have to encourage the younger one to do them. But even as you have this like particular thing, you're also going to be sort of saying, let's try this and let's see how it works. And if this works out, then we know we've got something and we can kind of keep going with it. But maybe this particular style of parenting or this particular thing doesn't work with this kid.
Yeah.
So we've got to maybe change our tactics, right? They'll talk about the like rewarding a child for doing something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
What is it?
sometimes the
Positive
reward system,
reinforcement.
sometimes the reward system though gets messed up
Yeah.
by virtue of the fact that you're trying to reward certain behaviors that you like. The kids start doing it not because they want to do what's good, but because they want the reward.
Right,
And so
right.
they're just constantly looking for something. And next thing you know, you've got an entitled little brat that's like you're just doing things so they get recognized, and
Yeah,
you've got to
yeah.
completely reevaluate everything, right?
Right. Yeah.
Whatever it is, like you've got this opportunity to constantly adjust.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we kind of forget that we're in that place of adjustment all the time. It's
All
not
the
just
time.
when we're in a moment of transition. The moment of transition tends to make that the fluctuations of our lives may be a little bit more difficult or a little bit more evident and apparent to us. You know,
Yeah.
I realize
I
when I'm,
also think it just brings things to the surface, you know?
yeah,
Like sometimes you've got like, I don't know, maybe a paper cut's a bad example because paper cuts sting, you know? But like have you ever like, I don't know, have you ever been like working on something and then you look down and you're like, "Oh, my finger's bleeding."
yeah,
You know? Like I didn't even realize that my
yeah.
finger is bleeding. And not only is my finger bleeding, I have no idea what I cut it on.
Why
You
is
know
it
what I
bleeding? Yeah,
mean? Like, yeah, you know, and it's been like, and like, there's enough that it's like, it's obvious that it's been bleeding for like 2 or 3 minutes, you know? I think that sometimes that happens when you go through the moment of transition where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that there was something wrong with this, you know, that I've been trying to fit a square into a circle hole, you know, like it's just not fitting, you know?
yeah. And there's a
Um,
temptation there, isn't there? That in the moment that you realize this thing that I've been doing that actually hasn't been working, now I
mm,
see it.
mm,
There's this temptation to spend an awful lot of time on regret,
mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm,
kicking yourself for doing it wrong.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And this is where understanding what repentance means.
mm-hmm.
Like repentance means to turn away from the thing that's no
Yeah,
good,
yeah,
to seek forgiveness, and then to move in the correct direction.
totally.
This is what Jesus is saying to Saint Peter, right? He says, "Behold, Peter, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat, but when you have turned, strengthen your brethren."
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you have turned away from that sifting, when you've turned away from that thing that draws you away from me, then you're going to strengthen the brethren.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I recognize that I've been doing something the wrong way and I have regret about it, fine. It's okay for me to have regret. Like there's
Right,
nothing.
right.
Regret is not a moral evil, right?
No,
I can
no.
say I wish I didn't do that, or I wish I didn't do it that way. But if I spend the rest of my time just locked in and focused on that place where I messed up or I didn't do well, all I'm going to do to myself is
Mm-hmm.
torture myself. All that's going to do is bring me to a place of pretty significant pain because I can't see anything better, because I won't acknowledge these other things that
Mm-hmm.
could be good. But when I can say, oh, I didn't do this the right way, and I can say I'm sorry, or sometimes it's not something to apologize for. It's just, well, that was ineffective. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's nothing other than it was ineffective. Like if I put out a sprinkler on the lawn and I think this is going to hit every part of the lawn, and I realize there's one patch of grass that it doesn't hit.
Right, right.
Well, okay, that was ineffective. I don't have to apologize
Yeah,
necessarily. I just
yeah.
have to go out and adjust the sprinkler. It's okay.
Yeah.
Make the
Yeah.
adjustment as it's necessary.
Yeah.
But then that's where we pick ourselves up again and say, okay, I did it this way. I don't want to do it that way. Now we're going to try it this way, or I now see what the right way to do this is. So I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to begin there. And we give ourselves permission to sometimes be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's an
Oh my
inconvenient
gosh.
permission, but it's like,
You're just killing it right now. You're bringing up so many ideas for me.
I find that, okay, so this is me just as a pastor,
Okay.
right? As a pastor of a parish. A lot of times there are things that a pastor has to decide to do in a parish. Like I've got to make this decision or that decision.
Yeah.
And there are times when like I'll make the wrong decision.
No.
I know that. I look, I am well aware that my tenure as
You
a
heard it here
pastor.
first, folks.
Yeah.
Sometimes Father Sam is wrong.
Have you heard this joke? Right.
No.
I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken.
Yeah, you know, the best part of this is that, yes, I've heard of this joke before. You
Probably
say
from
it.
me, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you've said
Good.
it on the show.
Good. I'm glad. Don't edit it out. Leave it
I
in
won't.
there.
No, I never would.
No, you see, I know that I've been wrong. I know that I've made decisions that haven't worked really well. And so when I've made the decision that I think is not the right decision, or I realize that it wasn't the right way, I've had to learn to say, okay, that didn't work. We've got to try something else.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've also had to learn is that sometimes I'll do something and it's not popular. Just because something's not popular doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right, right.
Sometimes
What does
the thing,
Chesterton say? He says something like, just because everybody does it doesn't mean it's right, and just because nobody does it doesn't mean you're wrong. Something like that, you know, like it's just not a popularity contest, you know?
Right. It's funny because if I stick to the things that I really believe are right, and there are some
Hmm.
things I would say as a pastor that I stuck to, even though
You
initially
got some
people were
pushback, maybe.
pushing back or
Yeah,
there's some
yeah.
resistance to it. Those things now are like non-issues.
Right.
Nobody's worried about them,
Yeah.
and sometimes you stick to it with your kids. Right? There are going to be certain things that
Oh.
you have to stick to, even
Oh
though
yeah.
your 2 year old is, I don't know if you know this yet, but your 2 year old is not always going to want everything that you're offering to him.
Yeah, he's also never gonna want to go into timeout.
Yeah,
You know, like
exactly.
the fact of the matter is that there are certain things where you just like, I mean, you're the adult in the room and you're like, yeah, no, that's not okay. You can't do that, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna make you sit on the step for a minute or for whatever it is, you know, varying degrees, you know? And it's like, I mean, a piece of the challenge, this is a tangent again, you know, but a piece of the challenge is that sometimes my son thinks that timeout is actually just a game. You know what I mean? Like he's young enough that he's like, yeah. I'm like, do you need to be put in timeout? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, this is not helping. You know, this is not. That was not the point.
He's just ready to have fun, man.
Yeah, yeah, he
He's
is.
just
He
ready to
is.
have a good old time.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Anyway, sorry,
no, it's
interrupted you.
okay. I think the whole idea of sticking to something
Hmm.
and kind of being confident in it can be difficult. The whole idea of making a mistake and repenting of it can be difficult. But
Yeah.
one of the most human things that we can do is uh, acknowledge when we've been wrong, ask
Hmm.
for forgiveness, and try to fix it. And then another very human thing that we can do is be convicted of something, be
Hmm.
convinced that this is the right way, this is the correct thing,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
stick to it even when it's most difficult. Because I mean, I again, coming from like the church perspective, pastor
Hmm.
perspective, and everything,
Hmm.
one thing that I come up against a lot, not like personally within my parish, but like I'll talk to people and they'll tell me about these things that are happening either in their parish or in their diocese, that they try to do something and there's a group of people that doesn't like it and makes a thing of it, and
Hmm.
then they feel like they can't do anything. They have
Hmm.
to stop doing it, or like the bishop gets sensitive to some. No, I don't mean like
No,
necessarily Bishop Frank, but like
yes, I
the
know what you're
bishop
talking about.
of diocese A, B, or C,
Yeah.
right? He gets a couple of people writing a letter, and he starts to worry that there's a big problem, and it's
Hmm. Hmm.
two or three people who don't like something and decided that they would take their complaint directly to the bishop.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get tentative, like we're afraid of what we'll lose.
Hmm.
Talk to parents, right? What are they afraid of? They're afraid that if I say this, or if I hold this rule too firmly, my kids are going to hate me. Or if I make them go to church even when they don't want to, they're going to think that I just shoved religion down their throat. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
parents are afraid of that.
Yeah.
And these aren't illegitimate fears. These aren't fears without reason, but
Yeah.
there's also this place where we have to come to that ability to say, I know this to be true, I know this to be right, and I want it to
Mm.
happen. There's a gentle way to introduce that. There's a kind way, there's a compassionate way,
Hmm.
but there also needs to be a strong way.
Yeah,
Like
and it's
we need to
interesting
have
too
that
because
foundational strength that says I'm okay doing this.
yeah, it's interesting too because that I mean, like especially if you were to look at the example of forcing like a teenager to go to mass, you know, one of the things that could be like subconsciously behind that would be, well, if I force him now, there's no way he'll want to go later by himself. You know, like this is how it'll develop. And so it's like oddly coming from this place of proper concern. You know,
Yeah.
it's not just like, well, I want my kid to like me. It's like, well, I want what's best for my kid. And I actually believe it's him going to mass. I just think he has to choose it, you know? And so it's like disentangling those things can be difficult.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of things that I want to say to what you've been saying. Okay.
Okay.
And I've been taking some notes
Oh boy.
on my computer. Okay, so the first thing is that as far as repentance goes, I think that one of the reasons the Lord allows us to make those mistakes and then repent, other than the fact that He just like has this incredible respect for our freedom that should baffle all human beings always. You know what I mean? Like it's insane. You know, I mean, I guess it's actually the most sane thing ever because that's the choice God made. But, you know, we don't have to go down like a weird metaphysical path right now
That's
for a
good. Yeah.
side comment. But rather, contrary to what I usually do for no reason at all. But rather like, I mean, I've experienced it in my own life, like as someone who had what I would consider like a radical reversion to the faith, you know, like I've looked back at my life before it and after it and realized that like it's got to be true that one of the reasons he allowed it, other than the fact that he let me do what I was seeking in the moment, you know, is that he knew that one of the goods that would come out of it is just like being so on fire. You know what I mean? And maybe you're not supposed to say that about yourself, but what I mean is like I care so much more deeply. You know what I mean? Like so much more than I did. And it is because I had that experience of going astray and then repenting.
Yeah.
Um, the second thing that I wanted to say, when you were talking about, you know, repenting and repenting quickly, is that I've been reading Intro to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales because I'm in a class called Christian Spirituality at Franciscan right now. And my professor, Dr. Mark Miravalle, was talking about how St. Francis de Sales, which in my notes I accidentally wrote in a typo by saying St. Francis de Sales, but I think it's funny. Yeah. What he says in Intro to the Devout Life is that, well, so you're called to be gentle with yourself as you are called to be gentle with others. Like you're called to true meekness. But to insist that like you need to that you need to be like X amount of angry at yourself or X amount of sorrowful with yourself before one repents is actually like kind of an act of pride, you know? Like
Oh yeah.
Jesus is on the cross awaiting you, you know, to welcome you back to himself, and you turn to him and say, I'm not sorry enough yet. You know, and it's like, oh man, you know, once you put
Yeah.
it in that perspective, it's like, oh shoot, what am I doing? You know? Like, so the rapidity, I don't know, the quickness with which we are supposed to repent is like instantly. You know, like do it now. I don't care if you don't feel like you're sorry enough yet. You know what I mean? Like do it now. You know, because like basically because you're not God, you know, like God has called you to this and you're not him, so like do it. um and then another thing you said is like these distinctly human experiences we have, um and one of them is adjusting when necessary. And I wrote down we are not angels, and the reason I wrote down we are not angels is because you're like the third person in the last like 6 days to basically propose this comment to me, that like one of the aspects of being a human being is being in time and adjusting. Bishop Frank spoke about it with Jamie Baxter, the CEO of Exodus 90, on the last episode of Let Me Be Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Father, I think his name is Jordan Columba. Was
Columba
one of,
Jordan.
Columba Jordan. Okay, he was one of the keynote. That's funny. I had it reversed. He was the like the opening night speaker for the Catholic Psych Institute's Summit of Integration.
Yeah.
For which I have a virtual ticket. I think they're still selling it. Free plug to the Catholic Psych Institute. You're welcome.
Yeah.
But like so worth listening to, and I'm not all the way through it, but like I was like, oh my gosh, he's blowing my mind right now. You know, like we are. What he was saying is, you know, we're not angels, we're humans, and we go through time, and a piece of that is repentance, and that means going to God before being perfect. You know, he was saying how we're the God of the Jansenists, which is like is like a father that's impossible to please. It's like that's not who God is. You know,
Yeah.
God is the God who speaks to us from the cross and invites us when we fall to repent. You know, now, like in that exact moment. You know, like do it, and he accepts us where we are, and he goes with us. And as Bishop Caggiano likes to say, on the road to Emmaus, like Jesus walked with those people in the wrong direction. You
Yeah.
know, like you know, like, and then eventually they turned around, you know, but like he went the opposite direction with them, you know.
Yep.
And so like he does that with us, you know, and that's because we're not angels. We don't make that one perfect decision with full knowledge of what it is. It's like your boy makes so many mistakes, it's not even funny, you know. um And then the last thing that I wrote down was, you said persevering in difficulty, and I don't know if I have the book with me right here. Andrew, actually, the aforementioned Andrew McIntyre might have borrowed it. But he wrote a book called Wild at Heart, and I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Wild at Heart, but it's a book
I
geared towards men.
I know Wild at Heart very, very well.
Yeah, yeah. So I've read it the one time, and it deeply impacted me. But one of the things that I took, from it the most, I would say, is that like men desire to know they have what it takes,
Hmm.
and so persevering in difficulty, it's like that in many ways, like that is like one of the core things, that in particular men are called to,
Yeah.
because only in persevering in that difficulty do we know that we actually do have what it takes. Like you have to go through it to know.
Right.
And so Father Sam, you're on fire today. Okay, you are just
Well,
dropping
hang on. Let me tell you.
bombs.
Let me tell you.
BALMs.
Let me tell you a "We Are Not Angels" story.
Yeah, please,
Okay.
please, please, please.
The story goes that there was a bishop who was designing a seminary, and he brought the designs to the Pope.
Hmm.
And he brought the architectural plans, and he showed him so that he could say, I'm building a seminary. It's going to be wonderful. And the Holy Father looked at them and took a pen and just wrote in Latin, "They are not angels." And the bishop looked at the plans and looked at what the Holy Father wrote and said, "I'm sorry, Holy Father, I don't understand." And he said, "There are no bathrooms.
Right. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are not angels. You need to have
Yeah.
toilets in this building."
Right. Right. Right.
So they had to
Yeah,
redo
yeah.
the entire plans because they had just neglected to include bathrooms.
Right. 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 Exactly. Exactly.
They are not
I mean,
angels.
it's right. It's like even this. I mean, it's silly, right? But it's a perfect illustration where it's like it's necessary.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you're gonna
Anyway,
have to
so
take a
that's my
break.
not angel story.
Yeah. Yeah. So that has also been really helpful. I mean, I guess on a personal note, I'm just willing to share, right? Like that has been helpful as far as examining my own conscience has gone
Hmm.
because uh it is tempting for me. I wouldn't say that I've believed in a Jansenist God, you know what I mean? Like, or at least not fully, Um, but it has been helpful to be like, oh, like the Lord is not expecting me to be perfect on my way into the confessional. Like,
Yeah.
like, this is
Yeah. Yeah.
not, this does not need to be the place of, I don't want to say maybe the place of shame. Maybe that's what it is. This does not need to be the place of shame. Like I think you're the one who said it on the podcast, right? Like this is the place of victory
I stole that
where,
from Father Mike Schmitz.
okay, okay, okay.
Being
That's
completely
good. Credit where
honest.
credit's due. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Ascension Presents.
Yeah, yeah, right. But like that thinking we're angels, right? Like that can impact how you approach confession, which is like, I can't believe I screwed up. Like all these things are together. And as soon as one little string gets pulled, it's like it starts to fall apart. And so I don't know. That was a piece of it for me that I was like, oh my gosh, like the Lord knew I was going to screw up.
So think
Who
about
knew,
home. Come back to thinking about home, right?
Mhm.
When things feel like they've gotten messed up, whether by like my own fault, I've done this thing and I've caused this problem,
Mm,
or things are just I'm disoriented because of things going on around me, not necessarily even choices that I've made. Returning home is that place where I can find my way again.
mhm.
It's that place where I can remember the truth of who I am. And it's that place where I can, when I need to, like I can come back. All right, let's say that take the prodigal son,
Mhm.
right? The
Mhm.
prodigal son returns home, and it's the one place he can think of to go.
Mhm. Mm.
In all of his brokenness and all of his wounds and all the things that he's done, the only place he can think of to go is home. Now, practically speaking, there are countless other places he could go. He could, if he wanted to, wander off a little bit further. He could go
Right.
back to whatever it was. He could find another way of of making it on his own. He could keep trying, but he gets to this point of realizing, I can't. I need to go home. I need to go back to that place where there's my Father. And that's what we do every time we come back to God in confession. We're saying, I can't do this on my own. I need to go back to that place. But you also think about this, and you hear about this all the time. Like, a parent has a rough day at work, right? They're out, whatever they're doing, like the day is long, or they're traveling. What better is there than to like have your kid run to the door,
Right.
excited to see you because you're
Yeah.
home, right? There's
Yeah.
there's nothing quite so joyful and beautiful as that moment
Mm-hmm.
when you're being greeted because you're there,
Mm-hmm.
and all that matters is that you're there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that kid is just excited that you have come back to that place, and like to come back to the home, to that place where we can sit in my chair, put my feet up,
Mm-hmm.
like eat the
Mm-hmm.
food out of my refrigerator, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sleep in my bed, like to know that I'm in the place where I belong.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
What a
beauty in that.
relief.
It's a
Right.
relief,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we can recognize that home is that place where it's not just physical rest and relaxation, but there's a spiritual dimension to it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we get caught up, and this is where the Jansenism comes in, maybe a little bit, of
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
like, uh, I'm going to have to get rid of anything that makes me feel physically comfortable as a way to
Mm-hmm.
punish myself, or I
Mm-hmm.
can't have any nice things, or I can't have a certain type of a house or something like that, all because I know that my true home is heaven.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Your true home is heaven. That's correct. 100% accurate.
Yeah.
And you're also right that maybe you want to do without certain creature comforts for the sake of disciplining yourself,
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of offering a penance. But that doesn't mean that like your life should always be uncomfortable. That doesn't mean that your life should always be deprived of certain things.
Right.
It means maybe for a season.
It's
That's why the
almost
church gives
like
us seasons of feasting and fasting.
right.
You know,
Right.
so like we fast in Lent, but we don't fast during Easter,
Yeah.
right? That's why the church encourages year-round fasting in a modified way. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
don't eat meat on Friday as a way of fasting, but that doesn't mean that you can't still enjoy good things throughout the rest of the week. It just means on Friday, do this one small thing as a penance.
Mm-hmm.
It's that
Mm-hmm.
reminder that we need it, and yet we're also not meant to be miserable and uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. So oh, you're nailing it. You're nailing it, Father Sam. You're just doing great. you're just making me realize so many things.
Well, I'm
Okay.
glad.
Okay. So like I love that because it's the balance of difficult things and also that relief that I would argue that like shadow of joy that comes in being home, right? Like if you got rid of all of your, unless it is this like incredibly special grace, because I do think that there are some people who receive this incredible special grace that they live lives of like unbelievable penance, you know? Like I'm thinking of someone like Saint Gemma Galgani, you know, that I recently read her, I guess it's her autobiography. She wrote it to her spiritual director. I mean, she is a canonized saint. It has since been published, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and there was this moment where Jesus appeared to her, and Jesus said to her, "You keep turning to these." I actually think he might have used the word creature comforts, you know, instead of me in your pain, and that really impacted me because I realized that that's something that I do. Like when I'm uncomfortable, like I'm like 5 clicks away from YouTube, man. You know, like it is very easy to be like, I need to find a funny short, you know, like I'm not, you know, because I'm feeling a certain thing, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and so like I would say that that's probably disintegrated, you know, and that like it is good to try and limit our creature comforts, but it would be outside of the norm. I would say that seems to me fair to say that it would be outside the norm to have the expectation that to be a mature Christian is to live outside of creature comfort, because I am indeed a creature. You know what I mean? Like, so like I don't think I'm called to. I don't think anybody is really. I mean, actually, I know everybody is not called to a total devoid of creature comfort because we have the season of Easter. Like we are called to
Yeah.
celebrate, you know, and we are an Easter people. My pastor, Father Swear, says that all the time. We're an Easter people. Like we should be taking Sunday seriously.
Yeah.
And it's because if we don't take Sunday seriously, if we don't take Easter seriously, we're gonna lose the feeling, like the not just the feeling, but like almost like the thing towards which we're called to, like that small piece of it that's on the inside of us that we know we're drawn to.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you don't want to lose that. You know,
One of the great
um,
joys that I've had is being able to witness Franciscan friars of the renewal
mhm,
when they have an opportunity for uh, like recreation
mhm,
or
mhm,
food.
mhm, mhm.
And to watch the friars who live a penitential life,
Right,
right?
right.
The habit is rough, the lack of shoes is rough, the
Mhm.
beard is rough, the housing that they have is minimal.
I
They
mean,
they
most of them sleep on the floor,
Yeah,
right?
like
Like,
they live an extremely simple life. They're ready to camp out whenever they need to. Like if the
mhm,
best you can do is offer me like the floor to sleep on, I will sleep on the floor and be
right,
grateful for it. They're amazing that way.
yeah,
But if you ever have a chance to spend time with them when like they're invited, come just like sit down and
right.
eat.
There's a
And
cheesecake.
yeah, and the food is
Right,
being
yeah, yeah.
provided for them. Like they didn't
Right,
have to
yeah.
prepare it. They didn't have to go out
Right,
and buy it.
right.
It's just like, guys, come and eat.
Yeah.
No one eats like a Franciscan.
Right, right, yeah.
And it's honestly, it's a beautiful thing to watch. I'm not just making a joke here about like how if you invite one Franciscan of the renewal to dinner, he's going to bring six more, which he
Yeah, yeah.
is. Just so you
Right,
know,
right,
anybody
right.
out there who wants to invite a CFR to dinner, they're going to bring more. It always
Right. He's
happens
gonna
that
bring
way.
six more
At
this
minimum,
time.
six more
Next time,
minimum.
right?
you know.
Next time it's gonna be 12.
But to watch CFRs kind of cut loose with recreation and to be able to like enjoy the place where they are or the activity
Hmm.
that they're doing, there's this, it's because of their penance. It's because of the discipline that they have that they're
Hmm.
able to appreciate how good this other thing is.
Totally.
They fast. And so that means that when they get to feast, they appreciate how good the food is. And they
Absolutely.
appreciate it in a different way. They go
Absolutely.
without all these things. So when they have the chance to do something or to use something that they don't normally get to use,
Hmm.
they embrace it with this joy and enthusiasm because it's so outside of their norm.
Hmm.
They don't turn their nose up at it and say, that's not penitential enough, I won't do it. They
Right,
say
right,
yes to it.
right.
And what
And
you see
what
there
a
is
backwards way to approach a gift from God.
right. But what happens then is like we realize, all right, the fasting, the discipline, all of this, it teaches me something really good and really necessary, but it prepares me to appreciate the good things. And
Hmm.
so to live with them, to live in them, to actually enjoy it and to do well with it. And
Hmm.
that's how like my humanity becomes more fully what it is.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
I am, as famously attributed to Pope Benedict, the world promises you comfort, but you were not made for comfort, you were made for greatness,
Hmm.
right? I can sit around and be comfortable and lazy, and it ultimately doesn't make me happy.
Right.
But when I do the hard things or when I do difficult things or when I go without something that I really like, but I have the spiritual mindset to say, let me offer this to God or let me ask God to bring some virtue and some goodness out of this, then things change. So whatever my circumstances, it could be moving from one house to another. It could be I'm adjusting to having more than one kid to take care of. It could be
Hmm.
I've got a new class schedule. It could be I'm moving to a new parish. It could be any number of different things, whatever's
Hmm.
going on. If I can go in with the preparation and the mindset, I'm ready to encounter Jesus wherever he wants to encounter me in this.
Hmm.
I want to make a plan for how I pray. I want to open my heart to this. Like God's going to do something great and
Yeah.
amazing in and through that.
Yeah, and not to potentially steal the final word from you, but I do want to share one other thing, which
Share,
was,
please.
you know, I was telling you how I mentioned to you before the show that I felt like I got to experience, like I had a profound moment in the chapel with my brother-in-law Andrew. So for context, for someone who perhaps is listening to us for the first time, first, welcome to the tangent. An
Welcome to the
hour three
neighborhood.
in, well done. Um, but but a lot more context for what this story is will
If
come
they
from.
made it this far, they don't feel the need to be welcomed. They're
Yeah,
like, they're
yeah,
okay with it, you know?
No, I think that I'm gonna start doing welcomes to first time listeners 1 hour into each episode.
As long as it's
But
just welcome. You
yeah,
can't say
welcome.
have you heard the welcome in phrase?
No.
You'll hear it every once in a while, and it drives me nuts. Welcome in? No, just welcome. That's enough.
Welcome, just welcome. Okay,
Yeah.
noted. Perfect. That's how I'll do it.
Yeah.
But for further context for a bunch of this story, right? We actually had Andrew on the show because Andrew's a convert. He converted last year. There were so many like intertwining pieces to that story.
That feels like 100 shows ago.
I know.
I don't know how long ago we did that one.
I know. It was probably 50 or so. But
remember you guys
Father
passing the microphone
Sam,
back and forth to each other because
Yeah,
you only had the one mic.
yeah. Father Sam knew the priest that walked with Andrew. They went to seminary together in Rome. Like it was wild how everything came together.
Yeah.
But Andrew, and he would be okay with me saying this because he knows it's the truth. Andrew was a former Taoist. You know what I mean? Like, suppose I say former Taoist. I mean, it wasn't like he was going to like a Buddhist temple or anything like that. You know, but so when I met Andrew, I mean, to his credit, I think Andrew has always been a seeker. You know, like he was always looking for truth. But for a long time, he was like the number one guy on the list for whom Renee and I fasted for. You know, like you know, he was and he is like so on fire. I'm gonna brag about him. Like I came down here, it was like, you know, move day 2, and I came downstairs and he was by himself saying a rosary on the couch. You know, I was like, I was like, oh man, like every time I see him pray, I'm like, you know, to be gushy about it, you know, like I'm like, this is awesome. Like he is a testament to God's goodness in our lives.
Yeah.
You know, because of the radical, you know, conversion he's had and impact he's had on us. But point is, you know, we went to the chapel at, it used to be St. John Fisher. I don't remember what it's called right now. And we just, you know, I was like, hey, I just want to show you this chapel because this chapel was on the campus of where my high school was. Like I've spent a bunch of time here, you know, and we knelt down. And it just hit me where it was like, God was like, do you see what I can do? You know, like, do you see like the miracles that I'm capable of working? Because like, we prayed a lot for him, you know? And like, here he is kneeling next to me in adoration, you know? And so like, the reason that I bring it up is because to me, right, I got hope from that. You know, and it seems to me that this whole conversation that we've had about planning and being intentional and persevering and knowing that heaven is our home, it's like if we lose hope, it's like all that stuff goes away. Like you can't do it without that virtue of hope. And so hope being, I would, I guess, define it as trusting God and like knowing you can rely on him, you know? And so praying for that, the theological virtues, you know, all 3 of them, faith, hope, and love. But I think especially hope is pertinent to this particular conversation.
I think that's good. I think that's right. I think that's a great last word.
Nice. Cool. That's what I was hoping to hear.
Thanks, man. Yeah. It's great to see you again, Matt.
Yeah,
I missed you.
It's good to like talk to you. I mean, we've texted back and forth a bunch of times, but it's different when I get to sit down and actually chat with you for an hour plus, you know? Anyway.
Awesome, man.
Cool. All right.
Thanks,
Sam. I'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thanks for watching today's video. Let us know what you thought down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.